Yes, 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 we're back, we're back, we're back. It is another Tuesday evening, and you are listening to Soul Perspectives here on CKUT 90.3 FM. My name is Kim Dominique Ferguson. I'm in studios with,
Renee Jordan.
and we have a guest joining us all the way from New York City by the name of Essence Revealed. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about what Essence has done and her journey, um, getting a BFA at the Tisch School for Arts, an MA at Steinhardt School of Education, eventually looking because in New York everything's really expensive and you need multiple jobs to be able to sustain living there. So, teaching during the day and then trying to find a bartender job and then ending up in a strip club and doing that and then transitioning using the training from being in the performing arts, transitioning, doing a one-woman show, among many other things. So tell us a little bit. Renee, you had a question before the break.
Yeah, I was just curious about the colorful characters that you said you met many colorful characters and you kind of use those characters in your show. And I was just wondering who might have been the most interesting of character that you met. Describe them a little bit.
Two come into mind. One is there was this woman, white woman, blonde hair, boobs. She had that typical kind of Barbie doll look, except if Barbie was more voluptuous. And she sometimes would be like, oh my gosh, I just worked 30 days in a row. And the mental exhaustion that working in a club days in a row causes, I cannot imagine doing it 30 days in a row. And I'm like, why are you working 30 days in a row? And she's like, cause my pimp said I gotta make blah, blah, blah amount. And I was just like shocked that such a young woman, would be in that situation, and I was actually able to ask her like, so, you know how to hustle, you know how to, you learned everything that he taught you. Why wouldn't you just go away and be on your own? And the Stockholm syndrome is real. She had to call before she left and be like, can I leave? When she had her own apartment and a car. And so before she was leaving at work, she had to call him and be like, gas and go, or send a text, so that he knew she was on her way to work. It was just, I was like, this is happening in real life.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make any sense to me because she was so good at hustling. The other person was this Latina woman who would come into the dressing room every night and be like, okay, ladies, let's get it. Are you ready? We're going to make so much money tonight, right? She was the best. She was like, anytime she came into the backstage, it was just energy. So yeah, those are two that I remember. One that just made me go, and one that made me smile a lot.
Right.
Yeah, on opposite ends of the spectrum. So in a way, you saw the trauma that I guess you helped people deal with as you worked in the club.
Yeah, a little bit, everyone likes to stereotype and say that everyone in the club, is a drug addict or has daddy issues or isn't a sexual abuse survivor. I'm like, there would be way more people doing stripping and porn and all that kind of stuff. If it was a matter of being a sexual abuse survivor, because so many women are, right? And there certainly were the women that showed up just to get what they needed for their drugs for that day or few days or whatever it is they do. But there were also teachers, nurses. I worked with a biochemist who was working on her own makeup line. Everybody was there. There was a woman that looked like she could be somebody's grandmother. And I was just like, whoa, everything can happen in Vegas. She was still in the club working and doing well.
Okay.
There's a market for everybody, right? There's
Listen, there were women that would be stereotypically 10, and there were women that were like the girl next door. Yeah, there was all types of looks. Mostly white though.
Okay. And how does one, I guess, get up every day and sort of do that job and not let themselves feel, I guess maybe dominated by the men that come in and, or how do you?
Okay, so I don't know about you, but the first time a man said something sexually to me on the street, I was 11 years old. And I didn't even think he was talking to me because this was like someone that could have been my grandfather. And so he said whatever he said out the truck window as he was driving by. And I literally looked around to see who he was talking to. And I was just like, this person said that to me? And so that's something that I have to deal with all the time. Now, when I go into a club, I decide when I'm going to work. If I don't feel like working that day when I wake up, I just don't show up. I decide how much I'm going to work. I decide when I'm going to leave. I was working in gentlemen's clubs, so these were older rich white men. I'm like, the only reason you have that money is because down the line your people owned me, so give me back my money.
Yeah. And so in that particular setting, you actually have more control than, say, when you're on the street or when you're in another setting.
I mean, am I really being objectified as a 20-something-year-old having conversations, pretending to be interested in these grown men who would never be able to pull women like the women in the club, even if we were age appropriate, right? I don't think I never felt like I was being objectified. If anything, I was like, this is great. I can do what I need to do during the day. I can pay my bills. I can save. I can invest. I can get rid of these student loans. Yeah, I wasn't feeling so taken advantage of.
Because it was a job, right? It was something that you were willingly doing. You didn't feel forced to be
there were good days. There were
there.
days that sucked. There were days where I was like, I'm doing this till I die. There were days where I sold all my things and was like, F this job. And then had to buy things all over again. It's a job. Done with this.
So tell us a little bit, because you said that you were a burlesque dancer, and burlesque and stripping have similarities, but they're also very, very different. So could you tell us a little bit about the contrast, compare and contrast stripping and burlesque?
I like to say that stripping is stripping in your $30 latex dress to make hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And burlesque is performing in your dress that costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars to make tens of dollars. Some people will say call burlesque art stripping, because there is that in its history, it's about satire. It's about making a statement about something going on in society, or it's about, the tease and, what are you trying to get from the audience? What kind of feeling are you trying to elicit from them as you do your tease? Typically people will have a gimmick. Say you got to have a gimmick. So there's feather fans, and there's boas, and there's stocking peels, and there's tassel twirling. And I started assel twirling. It's exactly what it sounds like. The tassels go here, the assels
go on the booty.
Very fun toy. It's a very fun toy. You gotta have a gimmick.
Yeah.
So there can be an element of storytelling and theater to burlesque. It can be political, it can be dramatic, it can be sexy, it can be funny, it can make you cry. It can do anything you want it to do.
Okay. And
whereas stripping is a sales job. Run me my coins. That's it. Just give me my money.
Right. Marketing versus theater. Kind of.
Yeah. Sales versus your dream passion work.
Yes. You had touched on very briefly in our previous segment. You said that you had to check yourself into hospitals for psychiatric care. So tell us a little bit about how mental health and taking care of yourself, and also like realizing that you needed help, how that came about and how you dealt with it.
Well, that day was an interesting day because I didn't intend on doing that. I just wanted someone to talk to freely. So I called a suicide hotline and I was like, listen, I'm not suicidal, but I need somebody to talk to because I'm living in this little bubble by myself. Like, it was very much living in isolation, right? In this little bubble.
Right.
But because I said the word suicide, which I didn't know, because I said the word, she was like, okay, we have a doctor at blah 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 hospital that you can go talk to. I told her that you're on your way, la la la. So I was like, okay. I thought I was gonna go and have a chat with a doctor and then be on my merry way and go home.
Right.
No.
Mm.
I had said suicide, so I had to sit there. And this is in Brooklyn, so there were women that seemed like they were there because they just needed a meal. There was a big woman that was sleeping and breathing, like she just inhaled and exhaled. So I'm sitting in this waiting room with these folks, and that wasn't really the plan.
Yeah.
And then when I actually got to speak to the doctor hours and hours and hours later, you know what she told me? Asian woman doctor. And she told me I just needed to get a real job.
What kind of treatment is that? It's very
She's like, my friend had a daughter that wanted to be, a painter, but now she's in medical school and she's much happier.
Yeah. Yeah, because that works for everybody.
That is what I was told when they would not let me walk out of a psychiatric ER. So at that point, I was just like, okay, look, it's just not even worth it to try to pretend to be who I'm not. I manage depression, and I'm sure that, living alone and not really having anyone to talk to, and yet hearing all the things that people would say about you, not knowing that they're talking about you, the fluctuations up and down of making money, not making money, being Black in America, so all of these things, plus, depression is one of the things that often happens to women who are sexual abuse survivors. And so that's one of the things that I've had to manage. And so I go to therapy 20 years now. It's just one of the things I do. I've had moments where I take medicine, moments where I don't take medicine, whatever is needed to get me through. Because if I had cancer and I needed chemo, I would just do the chemo if I needed it, or decide I'm gonna, do some kind of natural treatment, right? I wouldn't give myself shit about what I decided to do to get rid of the cancer. So I'm not gonna give myself shit over what I do to take care of my mental health.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to curse?
That's okay.
It's okay. It's community radio.
Yeah. Do you ever speak about the abuse, or is that something that's part of your show?
No, it wasn't part of my show. It's nothing that I don't speak about, but it's nothing that I've ever performed around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how have you moved from really experiencing something yourself to being able to help others?
Through my own healing process and journey, there was a point where I never would have been able to publicly admit that I was a sexual abuse survivor, especially because I was a dancer. Because I'm like, people are just going to say that's why you're a dancer. Or, people are going to say that's the reason why you are the way you are because of that. And then just the shame that people put on survivors in general, like, what did you do to be in that position? How dare you put yourself in a position with someone you thought was safe, but then ended up not being safe and they harmed you? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and usually the stigma is that it's some stranger that did this to you, right? Like everyone believes that there's this stranger that gets you in an alley, that grabs you in your car, but I don't know what the statistics are, but a high number it's usually a friend, family member, spouse that is doing the sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So like, how do
I think
you go ahead?
Of the times that things happened to me, only once was it kind of a stranger, but it was someone that I had gone on a few dates with before. So it was a date rape situation.
Right.
Someone that had treated me kind enough that I went on several dates with them,
Right.
Never did I think that was going to happen. But yeah, every other instance, I knew the people, family members, neighbors.
And when someone in a conversation tells you, what did you do, or how were you looking, or how were you dressed, or how do you respond to that?
It doesn't even matter because people get raped wearing pajamas, people get raped wearing mini skirts, people get raped wearing jogging suits. Like it doesn't even matter what you're wearing. So it's kind of an irrelevant question in my mind. Like it doesn't matter. What I wear has nothing to do with someone else's behavior. This person decided that they were going to violate me. That's their choice on their behavior. So what I was wearing, what I was saying, where I was at, all of that is irrelevant because it was that person's choice and that person's actions, and it didn't have anything to do with me. Yeah. In fact, there was nothing that I could have done to stop it if I wanted to. And coming to that realization that the fault squarely lays with the perpetrator is a huge moment. That was a huge moment for me to feel like, okay, there is absolutely nothing for me to be ashamed about because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't rape me. I didn't.
That is so true. But I find sometimes with the rhetoric that people get when they share their experience, and then someone tells them, they ask them these questions, then it sort of makes the victim feel like there was a reason why they were victimized. And then it makes women sort of hesitate in whether they should tell their story or express themselves.
Absolutely.
Or whether they should even call it what it is.
Right. Most women don't report because they see how women that do report are treated. People are like, why didn't she just go to the police? Are you kidding me? I mean, we have social media now, so you actually get to see in real time what the fallout is of a woman saying that she was sexually abused or raped, especially if it's a celebrity. There's immediately, she just wants money, discredited immediately. So there's not really a lot of incentive for women to feel like I want to step forward. The way that police officers handle victims of sex, it's just horrible. Yeah. So it's almost like a thing of self-preservation to not say anything, and that's a shame. Because
it is because so many people just get to circulate and keep doing the same thing that they're doing.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So it's like society would be so much better if we all could literally just have empathy for each other as human beings, right?
Yeah.
I'm a woman.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation, right? It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Yeah.
Right.
So and then women are silenced, and this perpetuates and goes on and on and on,
So how do you help women go through that, or how do you help them move through that trauma?
So what I do is, I'm not a therapist, so what I do is focus in on what is your passion project? What is something that you've always wanted to do? Because I find that as survivors, second guessing ourselves is something that happens. Doubting ourselves, being able to trust our instincts is an issue. And so if someone's working with me and they say, my passion project is I really want to get XYZ done, then I feel like there's a way in which I know how to, because I'm not in it, can step back and listen and formulate a plan of action steps that can get it done. Because a lot of times, you may have an idea in your head, but it's just fuzzy. And then you immediately start talking yourself out of it and saying you can't do it, or you're not good enough to do it, or all of the stuff that comes in. And so I'm kind of like the voice that comes in that goes, okay, we know that voice is there. Just tell me what you want to do, and let's come up with a plan to make it happen. So,
okay. So what are some of the projects that you've helped people sort of move into?
I had a client who had a side business that was an organizing business. And, women have a hard time asking for money. And she needed, I believe, about $5,000 to get a certification so that she could bring her business full time and she could charge more. And so we came up with a plan for her to raise the money that did not involve crowdfunding. Okay. And she was able to raise the money in 2 weeks by having the audacity to ask her supporters to support her. No GoFundMe, no posting on social media, just asking for the money from people that believed in her. And we came up with what email was the email going to say, what was the follow-up going to be, for these 10 weeks. What were things that we were going to give them as a thank you, going through that whole plan, because she was just scared to ask for the money. I have helped a woman who wanted to go on a solo travel trip. She's a mom, she works full time, she's married, and she was afraid to go on this trip alone. So we were able to work together and get her booked on her first mission trip. Okay. So it's all, it's not necessarily things that are about making money. I was working with a client today who does a bunch of different healing modalities and retreats for women. And there was a project that she had in her mind, but it was just like this ball of confusion. So I just listened and listened and listened and listened to everything that she had to say, and was like, okay, break out your calendar. This is how we're going to do this. And literally scheduled in the work sessions to get it done into her calendar. And I'll be following up with her. There's reminders in there. There is the time mapped out. There's when it needs to be done. A lot of times I feel it's just like getting out of your own heads to take the action. And what action do you take to get to the completion of the goal?
Okay, just in case you're tuning in for the first time, we are speaking to Essence Revealed, who is an author of a bestseller called Strip, a stripper's 20 life-winning lessons, and she's a woman's empowerment expert, speaker, coach, and entrepreneur. This is Soul Perspectives, and we're going to take a quick break, a musical interlude, and come right back. You are listening to Soul Perspectives here on CKUT 90.3 FM.